It was a day unlike any other. A great crowd had gathered, following Jesus to a remote hillside near the Sea of Galilee. They had seen his miracles, heard his words of wisdom, and longed for more. The sun hung high in the sky, and as the hours passed, hunger began to settle among the people. The disciples, seeing the vast crowd, grew concerned. Evening was approaching, and they had no food to feed the thousands who had gathered. Philip, one of Jesus' disciples, voiced his doubt. "Master, even 200 denarii wouldn't be enough to buy bread for all these people?" Then Andrew, another disciple, noticed a small boy in the crowd holding a humble meal, 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. He brought the boy to Jesus and said, "There is a boy here who has 5 loaves and 2 fish, but what are they for so many?" Jesus smiled, knowing what he was about to do. Jesus instructed his disciples, "Have the people sit down." The crowd, numbering about 5,000 men, not counting women and children, settled onto the grassy hillside in anticipation. Taking the 5 loaves and 2 fish, Jesus lifted his eyes to heaven, gave thanks, and blessed the food. Then he began breaking the bread and fish, handing them to the disciples to distribute among the people. To the disciples' amazement, the food never ran out. Basket after basket, they continued passing out bread and fish, and the crowd ate until they were completely satisfied. After everyone had eaten, Jesus told his disciples, "Gather the leftovers so that nothing is wasted." When they collected the remaining pieces, they found 12 full baskets of leftover bread. The people, realizing what had happened, were in awe. Some murmured, "Surely this is the prophet who is to come into the world." They wanted to make Jesus king right then and there. But Jesus, knowing their intentions, withdrew to the mountain by himself. The story of Jesus walking on water is one of the most well-known miracles in the Bible, found in Matthew 14:22-33, Mark 6:45-52, and John 6:16-21. After feeding the 5,000, Jesus sent his disciples ahead of him in a boat while he went up a mountain to pray alone. As night fell, a strong wind arose, and the disciples struggled to row against the waves. In the early hours of the morning, Jesus approached them, walking on the water. The disciples were terrified, thinking they had seen a ghost. But Jesus reassured them, saying, "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." Peter, wanting to confirm it was truly Jesus, asked, "Lord, if it's you, command me to come to you on the water." Jesus told him to come, and Peter stepped out of the boat, walking on the water toward Jesus. However, when Peter saw the wind and waves, he became afraid and began to sink. He cried out, "Lord, save me!" Immediately, Jesus reached out, caught him, and said, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" Once they climbed back into the boat, the wind calmed, and the disciples worshiped Jesus, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." The healing of a Gentile woman's daughter, Matthew 15:21-28, Mark 7:24-30. This event took place when Jesus traveled to the region of Tyre and Sidon, outside Jewish territory. The woman in the story is referred to as a Canaanite or Syrophoenician, meaning she was a Gentile, not a Jew. As Jesus entered the region, a Canaanite woman approached him, crying out, "Have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David. My daughter is severely demon-possessed." Matthew 15:22. Despite being a Gentile, she recognized Jesus as the Son of David, a messianic title. This showed her understanding of his divine authority. She was desperate for help, knowing Jesus was her only hope for her suffering daughter. Surprisingly, Jesus did not respond at first. His silence might seem unkind, but it likely served as a test of her faith. The disciples, annoyed by her persistence, urged Jesus, "Send her away, for she keeps crying out after us." Jesus then responded, saying, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel." Here, Jesus highlighted his primary mission, to bring salvation to Israel first. However, this does not mean he rejected Gentiles completely. Instead, he was preparing to reveal an important lesson. Despite this apparent rejection, the woman did not give up. She knelt before Jesus and pleaded, "Lord, help me." Jesus then said something that might sound harsh. It is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. In Jewish culture, dogs were often used as a term for Gentiles, though here Jesus likely used it in a more affectionate way, referring to small household dogs rather than wild scavengers. He was testing the woman's persistence, drawing out her great faith. Instead of being offended, the woman humbly responded, "Yes, Lord, but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." Matthew 15:27. Her answer was full of faith and humility. She did not demand a place at the table, but recognized that even a small portion of Jesus' power was enough to heal her daughter. Moved by her great faith, Jesus said, "O woman, great is your faith. Let it be done for you as you desire." Matthew 15:28. At that very moment, her daughter was healed. The feeding of the 4,000, Mark 8:1-9, Matthew 15:32-39. Jesus was teaching a large crowd of 4,000 people in a remote area for 3 days. They had nothing left to eat, and Jesus, filled with compassion, told his disciples, "I do not want to send them away hungry, or they may collapse on the way." The disciples were confused and asked, "Where can we get enough bread in this remote place to feed such a crowd?" They didn't yet understand that Jesus could provide miraculously. Jesus asked them, "How many loaves do you have?" They replied, 7 and a few small fish. Jesus took the bread and fish, gave thanks, broke them, and gave them to the disciples to distribute. The food multiplied as the disciples handed it out. Everyone ate until they were full. Afterward, the disciples collected 7 basketfuls of leftovers, more than what they started with. Jesus then sent the people home, satisfied both physically and spiritually. The story of the blind man in Bethsaida is found in Mark 8:22-26 in the New Testament. It is a unique miracle because it is the only recorded healing in the Gospels that happens in 2 stages. Jesus and his disciples arrive in Bethsaida, a town known for its lack of faith. A group of people bring a blind man to Jesus, pleading for him to heal him. Instead of healing him immediately, Jesus takes the man by the hand and leads him out of the village. This symbolizes a personal encounter with Jesus, away from distractions and unbelief. Jesus spits on the man's eyes and places his hands on him. Jesus asks, "Do you see anything?" The man replies, "I see people, but they look like trees walking." His vision is still blurry. Jesus lays his hands on the man a second time. The man's vision is fully restored, and he can now see everything clearly. Jesus tells the man, "Do not even go into the village." This may suggest that the village's unbelief could weaken his faith, emphasizing the need to walk in new spiritual clarity. The miracle of the temple tax coin, Matthew 17:24-27. In Capernaum, tax collectors approached Peter and asked, "Does your teacher pay the temple tax?" Peter confidently responded, "Yes, he does." He then went inside to tell Jesus, but before he could speak, Jesus already knew the situation. Jesus asked Peter, "From whom do the kings of the earth collect taxes? From their own children or from others?" Peter answered, "From others." Jesus explained, "Then the children are exempt. But so that we do not cause offense, go to the lake and throw out your line." This revealed that as God's son, Jesus was not required to pay the temple tax, but he chose to do so to avoid causing misunderstanding. Jesus instructed Peter, "Take the first fish you catch, open its mouth, and you will find a coin. Take it and give it to them for my tax and yours." Peter obeyed, caught a fish, and found a coin, a shekel, exactly enough to cover the tax for both of them.